So how long have you guys been doing this podcast? I listened to a couple episodes. I love it.
4 years.
It's been a while.
I think it's 5 years.
I think we're coming up on 6.
Oh my God, too long.
So
It's been too long.
6 years, 2 years. We've been pretty good at it.
There you go.
That's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Since we started doing the live stuff, I think we got better.
Yeah, live stuff is way more fun.
Yeah.
Well, you say that, Max. It's fun until we're like, whoops, maybe we shouldn't have said that on the air.
No, I love it. I 100% love it. And also, hey, the flubs happen. We're human, okay? You get to see that with the live stuff. And I like the people being there and the interaction, and it's all cool.
That's one of the things about COVID is that this whole pandemic, you get to see this whole other side of people, and it's way more intimate and candid. I kind of dig that people are really being themselves, who we would otherwise see in a very polished format. So I think it's rad that you guys do it live, because you've always been maintaining the candidness pre-COVID.
Yeah, we're hip. We were doing that stuff before it was cool. No big deal.
Hashtag trendsetters.
Hi, Rebecca. My name is Jason. Max is right next to me. We got John, Dan, and Scott. Thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Rebekah Miskin, and I'm an actor and writer and director, and sometimes producer if I have to be. And I'm from Toronto, Canada, and that's where I reside. Although at the beginning, I sort of go back and forth between here and LA. And so when this all started, I was in Los Angeles and then flew home. I think I flew home March 14th. So it was literally the day before there was a lockdown and a travel ban put in place between Canada and the States. So yeah, I made this web series called Night Owl, which is now available worldwide, which is super exciting.
So can we get a little summary as to what Night Owl is all about?
You definitely can. Yeah, so Night Owl is a super simple, low concept comedy, and it pretty much all takes place in a 24-hour grocery store in the middle of the night. And and it's based on my sad, lonely little life. But I came up with the idea when I'd first moved to LA, and I knew absolutely no one there. And I was living in this studio apartment, and I was just super bored and lonely to the point that I couldn't sleep. And it would get to be 1 or 2 in the morning, and I'm like, man, I just want to go for a walk, but I'm, a young woman living in the middle of Los Angeles. I can't just go for a walk at 1 or 2 in the morning by myself. So I'd get in my beat up rental car and drive to the nearest 24-hour grocery store, literally just so I could go for a walk in a safe place late at night and clear my head. And I started to see all the same people at the stores. And there was this security guard who would make fun of me for how often I came in, and a cashier who was literally putting herself through school, working the graveyard shift. And her and I just hit it off and eventually became friends. And this whole time I was trying to write and come up with an idea. And all of a sudden it occurred to me hey, maybe this is the idea. So that's kind of where it came from. And yeah, it's just a very straightforward comedy, I would say, in a lot of respects. And very character driven. And we just got so lucky with a lot of the cast. And we lucked out huge. The one benefit of being a creator who's also an actor is that I know a few actors, which is kind of nice. And there were many of the actors that were on the show were just, I mean, they're all incredible, but for them to you know, for what was basically peanuts, because we had no money to make it, you know, they came out and shot all night long for a few nights. It was pretty intense, but it was very fun.
You know, I was going to ask about that because as I did research and I saw that you filmed everything at night, very reminiscent of Clerks, with all due respect, you know, that kind of, you know, having to do it at night because the store's closed. And you shot series 1 in like 3 nights. So how challenging was it to shoot all of that in 3 nights? And did you have any like horror stories about, we shot this whole entire scene and there was no film in the camera or anything like that? Was there any horror stories that went along with that pacing?
I mean, yeah. So we horror stories, no, because like I said, we just got so lucky. It was very serendipitous. But one of the reasons we got so lucky, so Jesse Camacho is an actor, an incredible actor who actually you might know from Lock and Key. He's one of the series regulars on Lock and Key, and he's one of the stars of Night Owl. And he was really the only person who had worked as quickly as we had to work. And we had to work so fucking fast. Sorry, I don't, what's
It's all good. No, it's good.
No, it's all good.
Run
Good.
it.
I came right out.
It's okay.
I should have asked that in the email before I came on live. Anyway, yeah. So basically, we just got so lucky because Jesse had worked at that pace, and he was really the only actor that had worked so fast because we shot about 20 pages a night, which is very, very, very fast. And Jesse had been the lead on a show called Less Than Kind. And on Less Than Kind, by the end, by like, I think season 5 or 6, they were shooting that quickly. And so he had a lot of good tips for us. But to be honest, because the show is about a grocery store in the middle of the night, right? And I think it actually helped the actors. I mean, we definitely have some funny stories about people falling asleep while they're waiting.
It's very method.
What was that?
It's very method. You know, you're trying to immerse them in the experience.
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't deliberately method, really.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
All planned.
Exactly. But yeah, but we shot with 2 cameras, and one of the reasons that was so awesome is because there's a lot of improvisation in the show. And so we would basically get a safety take, which was, you know, exactly the script. And then once we had that in the can, then we would just let the actors do their thing. And again, so lucky that the actors we hired were very comfortable improvising, because when it comes to comedy, there is a certain je ne sais quoi, I suppose. There's a certain something that you can really only get when it's completely spontaneous. Now, sometimes you can tip the scale and it goes the other way and you're like, oh my God, please shut up. Like, this is going nowhere. But at the level that all of the actors that are in the show work at, they really, you know, letting them kind of take the reins just heightened it and made it so much better. So no horror stories, but it was so much fun. And we were like a little grocery store family for I think we shot it in 3 nights.
We're actually have Jesse coming on next week.
Oh my God, you will love him. He's just the most fun, funny, generous, candid dude. And he's really, I feel so lucky that we got to have him as well as all of the cast. They're just really, because there's a chemistry, right? It's kind of like if you watch a show like The Office, not that I would dare to compare Night Owl to The Office, that's setting the bar way too high. But you know, when you think about the chemistry of that cast, right? They're so comedically compatible, if that makes sense. And, you know, whether people watch Night Owl and think it worked or it didn't work, that compatibility, we just felt it so hard when we were shooting. Although I did recently hear, I heard Seth Rogen on a podcast where he was talking about the fact that some of the comedies that he's worked on when they're shooting, he's been like, man, this is so funny. And like when they're actually rolling, like the crew is laughing so hard at every joke. He was like, on a lot of those films, they didn't turn out that well. Like, what was the mall cop one that he did? I forget. There were 2 that came out.
Observe and
report. Right. He was like, yeah, like on that shoot, like everyone was laughing so hard. We really thought we were nailing it while we were shooting it. And then the movie came out and we were like, ooh. something went awry.
I guess you had to be there, you know?
Yeah, you had to be there. So I guess you hope that like when you're having fun on set, that it's not in vain and that it is actually going to translate when the show cuts together. But we had an amazing editor, this woman named Christine Armstrong. She's just one of the most talented editors. And I think that she just has also a sense of comedic timing, like that same sense of comedy that I think actors have to have, editors have to have when it comes to editing comedy, right? Otherwise, all the jokes get lost.
Mm-hmm.
So we got lucky there too.
Yeah, no, it's true. You compared to The Office, but The Office does a thing where it's supposed to be awkward, you know, so the timing is different because everything's got to hang for just a moment longer, and things like that. So yeah, timing is very, very important, and it's also great when you know everyone comes together and it all just works, you know, and it, you know, like hey, all the actors are giving out their 100, but you know, like everyone else is just putting it all together because yeah, the timing is so important. Like, you know, you hang for too long or you cut it off too short and you're missing something.
Exactly. Yeah. And that beautiful hang time on The Office is just the butt of so many jokes, and it doesn't get old. And I love that style so much. So we definitely took some cues from there, and just, I mean, there's so much fodder for comedic inspiration. I feel like you kind of try and cherry pick the best of all those worlds when you're shooting, but it was certainly stressful. It's an intense process, especially wearing a lot of different hats. But it all worked out in the end.
I have a question real quick, Rebekah, about the animation and the music for Night Owl. Because I think that I liked the music and the animation, and I thought it was such a nice, I don't know if I want to say subtle, but it was a nice addition. There we go. We'll go with that word, like a nice addition to the show. So could you talk a little bit about the artists who did the animation and the bands that did the music?
Yeah, I would be thrilled to. So this is again just another really lucky thing. So I know actually my ex roommate is a young woman named Rafa Wayman, and her artist name is Ralph. And she's like an amazing pop star. She was just on tour with Carly Rae Jepsen before COVID hit, and her career's been doing really, really well. So she gave us a song. And again, it was just like, I will pay you everything I can with these like 4 grants that's how we funded Night Owl, is we went for grants that were such small amounts of money. I was like, hopefully, you know, my competitors won't be like, you know, the Robert Lantoses of the telefilm grant world, for example. And so yeah, we funded it with like $1,000 grant, a $2,500 grant, and a $1,500 grant. And we patched all of those together to have enough money to do the show. And then I went to another friend, a guy named Ben Cook, who is a very talented musician. He plays in the band Fucked Up, as well as goes by Young Dove. That is the name of his like solo project. But a few years back, he'd done this collaboration, this sort of side project called Yacht Club. And they're almost like if Steely Dan met Hall & Oates met like classic 70s disco. And I had this joke that like every time, I swear to you, every time I would go into the grocery store in the middle of the night, Hall & Oates would be playing. Like, I don't know. And I love Hall & Oates, but like, it's just the perfect grocery store music. Like it just reminds me of a grocery store so much. So when I heard Yacht Club, I was like, oh man, like if I could license a Hall & Oates song, I would, but this might be even better because nobody's ever heard it before. And I shouldn't say nobody, there were lots of people who were fans of Yacht Club, but it was just kind of like a side project for Ben. Like it never became his main band. But it was just the perfect vibe that like Hall & Oates meets Steely Dan meets like grocery store in the middle of the night. And so almost all the other tracks, excluding the Ralph track, is Yacht Club. And they were generous enough to license their, I think we used the entire album, or like it really worked out because it was just the right vibe. And then in terms of the animation, it's sort of a funny story. So I knew that I wanted to have an animated title sequence for the show. And a friend of mine named Lauren Zuccarotto who's an illustrator, came up with these drawings based on drawings that I sent her, which were just atrocious. But I sent her these drawings being like, you know, these are all the things that remind me of the middle of the night, you know, raccoons eating out of garbage bins and all these sort of funny things about the grocery store in the middle of the night, just terribly drawn. And somehow from those just god-awful drawings, she was able to completely get what I wanted and drew me these just still drawings. And then we took them to an animator named Jessie Zeus, and she brought them to life. So that was a very cool process, but one that was really exciting for me because I'd never worked in animation before at all. Certainly not from the production side. Like I've done some voiceover stuff, but it's a completely different experience. So that was really cool and exciting for me to learn about that process as we went about creating the title sequence.
So yeah, no, that's kind of crazy. Like you were saying, wearing different hats. That's a lot of stuff. That's
Yeah.
that's really impressive. That's like I didn't realize so much would go into it. But I mean, like from the moment you were like, I have a unique perspective that is also can be very funny, and I'm going to express that. What like did it just come to you and you're like, okay, now this stuff's flowing on the page, or you know, did you just like did you have to work at it? Like what was your experience with that?
Yeah, well, so in truth, Night Owl was actually my master's thesis project, which is why I ended up wearing so many hats. I think under normal circumstances, like I would not choose to wear as many hats as I did on this project. Um, but the writing process was really interesting. I'd sort of come up with the idea, and then I didn't know what I wanted it to be. And I was kind of like, you know, what do people watch web series, and like if they do, where do they watch them? And then High Maintenance came out, and this was I actually think it had been out for quite a while by the time I discovered it. But all of a sudden I was like, oh man, I get it. Like this is why people make web series. And I think the way that they put it out and the format of High Maintenance when it was a web series, because it's now a full-blown show on HBO. But I thought the format of the episodes was really good, like 5 to 7 minutes, maybe 6 or 8 episodes in a season, kind of depending on the season. And as soon as I saw that format and the success of the show and like how well the story worked in that short format, I was like, okay, all right, you know what? I can do this with this idea about a grocery store in the middle of the night. So as soon as I knew what the format was, I was like, okay, what would 6 episodes look like? What would 8 episodes look like? And originally I was going to do 8, but we just didn't have enough time to shoot 8, unfortunately. So I was like, okay, I know what I want the story to be. And basically my writing process, or the way that it works, is I figure out the entire trajectory of the show. Like, where do I want the characters to be at the start? Where do I want them to be at the end? And then once the beginning and the end are clear, it's way easier to fill in the blanks, you know? And so I just did outlines for all the episodes. I then discussed those outlines with Jillian Mueller, who directed the series with me. She directed a few of the episodes. And she was like, yeah, that's good, or like, oh, that sucks, that's not funny. And that was amazing, because you always need someone who's going to tell you when something is no good or when it is actually sounds like it'll be all right. And then I wrote all 6. And I think I'd actually written a pilot episode that was a little longer, like before I'd figured out the format. So at some points I kind of would go back to that first episode just for like, there was some raw ideas in there that ended up being in the actual show. And so found a way to like infuse the good parts of the rough draft kind of into the final episodes. But I'm sort of like not a writer that's really precious about my own writing, which is why I was like, okay, cool. Like, we got a take of the script. Now let's see what you guys can do. And when you guys meet Jesse Camacho next week, you'll definitely see why, because he's just so hilarious when he's just being him. So, you know, it's nice when you're working in an environment where you can get the actors to bring as much of themselves to the table as possible, and get them to infuse the characters with all of those kind of beautiful things about them that are totally them, I guess.
How did it feel to have the sold out showings and screenings at South by Southwest? I imagine that had to be just absolutely like bonkers, exciting, anxious, et cetera, et cetera. So how was it for you?
Yeah, it was all of those things. It was all of those things. I mean, I must say, so Janet Pearson, who runs South by Southwest and is the head programmer, is just such an incredible person. I've got to say, like, without the support of South by Southwest, we would not be where we are right now. So much opportunity came to us because of that. And so when we, but that's the thing, is that when you get into a big film festival, and for us, South by Southwest was really like the brass ring, because they're a big film festival, but they're also one of the few that really cares about comedy and really programs comedy. Because when you think about maybe like a festival like TIFF or Cannes, they're not really known for programming comedy so much. So we were jumping for joy when we got in. And then we were like, oh shit. Like, we get to the festival and we're like, this is just the beginning. Like, getting in is cool, but it really depends how your project does at the festival, right? How it gets reviewed and how the screenings go. And so I truly feel like I can't take any credit. I feel like we just lucked out, because I had really no idea how much promotion should probably be going into your screenings, and you know, how much you should be putting into reaching out to press and stuff and hoping they'll do reviews. So when our screening sold out, we were just thrilled, and we certainly can't take all the credit, because we did screen with a couple of other shows. So I'm sure what they brought to the table as well was helpful for us. But then a lot of the reviews we got, like when IndieWire rated us one of the top 5 shows at South by, that really was a game changer for us. And like the support of journalists, of people like you, of podcast journalists, writers who will support the little guys like me, it's a game changer for us. So that was a crazy experience. And then, like, you know, fast forward to doing that whole festival run, and then like not really knowing what to do with the show. I was like, you know, we had a couple of offers from distributors, but we weren't really sure if they were the right thing. And then, you know, when the pandemic hit and sort of all the crazy shit that's happened in the last few months, all of a sudden it was just like, you know what, I just got to put out this show in a way that makes me feel like it can really give back to the community that helped me make it. So that's why we're donating 100% of the profits, which I've actually received some blowback for, which is really interesting.
Okay, no, explain that.
Yeah.
How dare you do something kind?
Yeah. It was interesting. So basically what we decided to do is partner with Vimeo. So it's and I'll send you guys the link for the show and stuff, for where the show lives. So we partnered with Vimeo's VHX platform. Reason being, I was like, you know, I'd love to raise some money for these organizations, but at the same time, I really don't want people to not be able to watch the show if they can't afford to pay, you know, however much. So it's listed at $6, but it's pay what you can. And Vimeo's VHX platform is one of the few platforms that will allow you to post something at the price of pay what you can. So that was that decision. And then in terms of our organizations, we're supporting, just to shout them out, the Neighborhood Food Project and BIPOC TV and Film, and Pathways to Education, all really incredible organizations that really work at the grassroots level to try and contribute to communities and do really amazing work. But so because we're donating 100% of our profits, I mean, my thinking behind that was kind of like, you know, I don't think anybody ever thought that like a web series was going to be their get rich quick scheme, like, or certainly I didn't. So it just felt like it made sense to dedicate this series all about a 24-hour grocery store in the middle of the night to grocery store workers who have held us down through the pandemic and the fight for justice and the protests and everything that's gone on. They've been like giving us hand sanitizer and wiping down carts, but I got some blowback, and that was really the only criticism that I received. Is I got some messages from people who were like, cool, like, good for you, but like, why would you donate 100% of profits? Like, that's kind of stupid, isn't it? Like, what are you doing? And
well, I mean, okay, if your goal is to make money, yes, you are kind of dumb, but like, If that's not the goal, then why criticize you over like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I was like, well, so what number would make you happy? Like, you want me to say 75%? Like, I don't know. It just seems very arbitrary. I think, like, for me, I was like, you know, I made Night Owl because I was passionate about it. And of course you hope that when you make anything that it's going to change the world. But, or at least I have. But I'm like, I don't think that a 24-hour grocery store, a show about a 24-hour grocery store in the middle of the night that's like a low-concept comedy is going to change the world in any kind of tangible way. And this just feels like the right thing to do. And you know, I can make money on other projects, but right now it just felt like the only way I could maintain my optimism is by actually stepping up and finding a way to do a little bit more. And if this show can make anyone anywhere laugh, even because they think it's terrible, and it raises a little bit of money for 3 really good causes, like, that makes me happy.
All right, Rebekah, thank you so much for coming on. You are